Somewhere deep in the wilderness of the American West, something wakes up. It hasn't eaten in 5 months. It hasn't moved. It hasn't even taken a full breath. Not really. But now, as the snow begins to melt and the first green shoots push through the frozen earth, the most powerful land predator in North America opens its eyes. What you're about to see isn't just an animal. It's a force of nature, a ghost of the Ice Age that still walks among us today. This is the grizzly bear, and this is its world. Yellowstone National Park, 2.25 million acres of wilderness in the heart of Wyoming. Geysers, hot springs, ancient forests, and roaming herds of bison. This is one of the last wild places in the contiguous United States where the natural world still runs largely on its own terms. And at the very top of that natural order sits the grizzly bear. Ursus arctos horribilis, that's the scientific name, and it literally translates to horrifying bear. But here's the thing. The more you learn about grizzlies, the less terrifying and the more extraordinary they become. These animals are not monsters, they are masterpieces of evolution. Today, we're going inside their world, season by season, moment by moment, to uncover the secret life of America's most powerful bear. Stay with us, because what happens at the 7-minute mark might be the most surprising thing you learn today. Let's start with the basics, and they are staggering. A full-grown male grizzly can weigh between 400 and 790 pounds. Some coastal bears, fed on rich Pacific salmon, push past 900 pounds. That shoulder hump you see? It's not fat, it's pure muscle, a powerhouse engine that drives the forelimbs when digging. A grizzly can excavate a burrow faster than a man with a shovel. Their claws alone can reach 4 inches long, not sharp like a cat's, but thick and rigid, built for earth moving, not slashing. And despite that bulk, they can run. A grizzly at full charge hits 35 miles per hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt, over rough terrain, uphill. But perhaps the most underrated thing about a grizzly is its senses. Their hearing and eyesight are sharp, but their nose is almost mythological. A grizzly bear can smell a carcass from 18 miles away. For comparison, a bloodhound, considered one of the best tracking animals on Earth, has a nose roughly 7 times more powerful than a human's. A grizzly's nose is roughly 2,100 times more powerful. They don't just smell the world, they read it. Here's something that might surprise you. For all their power, grizzlies spend most of their lives doing something very peaceful: eating plants. Grizzlies are omnivores, meaning they eat both plants and animals. But in Yellowstone, roughly 80 to 90% of their diet is actually vegetation: grasses, sedges, roots, berries, pine nuts. They're opportunists above all else, and the menu changes with the seasons. But come late summer and fall, everything changes. A process called hyperphagia kicks in, essentially a biological hunger overdrive. A grizzly needs to pack on enough fat to survive 5 or 6 months underground without eating or drinking. During hyperphagia, a single bear may consume 20,000 calories per day. That's roughly 8 times what an adult human eats. They become eating machines, spending up to 20 hours a day foraging, barely pausing to rest. And when the salmon run, a grizzly's patience turns to pure theater. They'll stand motionless in rushing rapids, waiting, and then strike with a precision that seems impossible for something so large. By November, a grizzly has done something remarkable. It has found or dug a den, often a hillside cavity or a hollow under tree roots, crawled inside, and essentially shut itself down. This isn't true hibernation the way a ground squirrel does it. A grizzly's body temperature only drops a few degrees. Their heartbeat slows from about 40 beats per minute to just 8. They don't eat, they don't drink, they don't urinate or defecate for the entire winter. Their bodies chemically recycle waste in a process scientists still don't fully understand. And yet, they can be roused. If you disturb a denning grizzly, it wakes up fast. Now here's where it gets extraordinary. As we move through this spring of 2026, Yellowstone's males are already back out. They typically emerge first in early March, lean and restless, moving through landscapes still locked in snow. The females, they wait a little longer, and for good reason, because some of them are not emerging alone. Grizzly bears mate in late May and June. But here is one of nature's most clever tricks, and honestly, one of the most jaw-dropping facts in all of wildlife biology. The fertilized egg does not immediately implant in the womb. Instead, it floats, suspended in a kind of biological pause. The process is called delayed implantation, and it only happens if the mother has stored enough fat by fall. If she has, the embryo implants, the cubs develop, and she gives birth inside the den in January or February. If she hasn't stored enough fat, her body quietly terminates the pregnancy. No resources, no cubs. The wilderness is not sentimental. A typical litter is 1 to 3 cubs. They're born blind, hairless, and about the size of a stick of butter. By the time they first step outside in spring, like right now, they've grown into the curious, playful little creatures that make even the hardest wildlife cameramen smile. A mother grizzly is, without exaggeration, one of the most devoted parents in the animal kingdom. She will spend 2 to 3 years raising her cubs, teaching them everything: which plants are safe to eat, how to fish, how to dig for roots, how to read the scent of danger on the wind. She is relentless in their education and absolutely ferocious in their defense. A mother grizzly protecting her cubs is the most dangerous animal in North America, full stop. But danger is everywhere. Male bears, especially large, unrelated males, are a constant threat to cubs. They'll kill young bears, a brutal behavior that triggers the female to come back into breeding season sooner. It's a dark chapter in grizzly life, and it forces mothers into a state of constant vigilance that lasts years. When the cubs finally disperse, usually between 2 and 3 years old, they're on their own in one of the most competitive ecosystems on Earth. Many don't make it. The ones that do are the next generation of Yellowstone's greatest story. Grizzlies are mostly solitary animals. Each bear holds a home range, which for a male can span hundreds of square miles. But they're not antisocial. They have a complex, nuanced language of posture, sound, and scent that governs every interaction. At rich food sources like salmon rivers, bears will temporarily tolerate each other with a strict, unspoken hierarchy. The biggest, oldest males eat first. Younger bears hang back. Mothers with cubs give everyone a wide berth. It's not chaos. It's a carefully negotiated social order, enforced through intimidation and earned respect. Real fights, the kind that leave scars, do happen, but they're rarer than you'd think. No animal wants to risk injury in the wilderness. Even the most dominant bear would rather bluff than bleed. Here's where the story gets truly remarkable. A grizzly bear isn't just an animal in Yellowstone. It's an architect of the entire ecosystem. When grizzlies dig for roots and ground squirrels, they aerate the soil, creating conditions where new plants take root. When they carry salmon carcasses into the forest, sometimes hundreds of yards from the river, they fertilize the trees with marine nutrients. Scientists have found the chemical signature of ocean-borne nitrogen in trees miles from any stream. Grizzlies literally carry the ocean into the forest. Then there's the relationship with wolves. When wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995, elk behavior changed. The animals began avoiding open valleys where predators could ambush them. This allowed riverbanks to recover with new vegetation, which stabilized stream channels, which brought back songbirds, beavers, and fish, a cascade of recovery. And grizzlies are part of that same living web, competing with wolves, scavenging wolf kills, keeping elk populations in check, reshaping the very land around them. Remove the grizzly, and this entire system begins to unravel. 100 years ago, this animal nearly vanished from the American West entirely. At their peak, an estimated 50,000 grizzlies roamed across the contiguous United States. By 1975, the population in the lower 48 had collapsed to fewer than 700 animals, victims of hunting, trapping, livestock conflicts, and the simple erosion of wilderness. That year, the grizzly was listed under the Endangered Species Act, and an extraordinary recovery effort began. Today, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem is home to approximately 1,030 grizzly bears, a genuine conservation success story, built over decades of difficult, determined work by scientists, rangers, and communities who chose coexistence over conflict. But the work isn't done. Grizzlies still face very real threats: habitat fragmentation as development pushes into wilderness corridors, human-wildlife conflict when bears wander near farms and ranches, climate change shrinking the whitebark pine forests that provide critical fall food, and an ongoing contentious debate over whether to remove federal protections in some states. The question before us now is not whether we can save the grizzly. We already proved we could. The question is whether we will choose to share the landscape with them, permanently, honestly, and with real commitment. There's a moment, if you're ever lucky enough to see a grizzly bear in the wild, when everything else goes quiet. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. You are looking at something that was here long before us, and something that, if we choose wisely, will be here long after. The grizzly doesn't need our admiration. It doesn't need our legends or our documentaries or our wonder. It just needs space, clean water, enough food, the freedom to follow the seasons the way it always has. That's actually not much to ask. The question is simply whether we are generous enough, wise enough to give it. The bear has walked this earth for millions of years. Let's make sure it walks it for millions more. If the grizzly bear left you with that feeling of awe, that quiet sense of something bigger than yourself, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this video, and it helps us keep making content that actually matters. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We go deep into the wild world of animals, ecosystems, and the science behind the most extraordinary creatures on Earth every single week. And drop a comment below. Which animal should we cover next? The gray wolf? The mountain lion? The bison? Tell us. We read every single one. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the wild.